Hi, I'm Chris Sikora, and I'm going to step you through the latest Creo version 9, this Creo Parametric version 9, and we're going to step through how to make this ratchet body. Now, in the training guide, this exercise is exercise 3, and it starts off on page 30, and you could grab that on vertanu1.com and just go to the training guides, and it's free. So you can see some of the dimensions that we're going to use here, and we're going to add draft, we're going to do a lot of neat things. And essentially, we'll see how multiple features work inside here. But let's begin. What you want to do is you just want to go to New. And then with this, we're going to go ahead and select Part and label it capital E3 and hit OK. We're going to go ahead and select, we're going to draw this on the front plane. So select the front plane. Now you could go to Sketch immediately like some other CAD systems out there, or if you know you're going to extrude it, and we're going to first design the head of that ratchet, so we could go to Extrude to start off with. And that will open a sketch on that plane. And once we're done with the sketch, we hit Apply, and it automatically brings us to the Extrude tool. So it's kind of nice in that respect, but it is a little more difficult to wrap your head around it. A more advanced user kind of likes it this way for Creo. On the other hand, someone who's starting off who might have experience with one of the other CAD systems out there might prefer to start the sketch first and then go from there. All right, so we've started our sketch. I'm going to go ahead and the first thing I'm going to draw, because the head is symmetric, I'm going to go to the centerline tool here. And I'm going to draw a vertical centerline. I just click on the center there, drag it straight up and click. I say drag, but when I say click, also release it unless I say hold. So in this case, it was just a click. Move your pointer upward and click again. Make sure it's vertical. Now we could go to the line tool and right about here, stay off of that line there, but draw a little line across at a slight angle like I have there. And then you could, with your middle wheel, just click to end the line chain. All right. Now, what we're going to do, actually hit that middle wheel again, just like it's a button, and you should see the dimensions appear. And just ignore those for right now. We could right away now just go right up to the mirror tool. Now, if you hit escape or if you hit any other button, you're going to have to pre-select that line in advance. But I didn't hit escape. I used the middle wheel as a button, and so that negates me having to hit escape. And it's also still selected, so I could go right to mirror and then select the vertical center line that you drew. And it should instantly mirror over that geometry. And those geometries there, see these little symbols, indicate the constraint is symmetric, meaning if I move one side, like I drag it, the other side drags along with it. All right, with that, now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go to the arc tools, and we want the tangent end. And you can just go down here at the bottom corner, and it really doesn't, the order doesn't matter. But click and drag this down. Don't go straight across. There's some really cool tools for more advanced users. We could go straight across. You could change the type of curve, but we want to go like down and swoop it underneath, and then click on that point. Now let's do the same up here. Go ahead and click on that point up there. Go over and then down. Don't go straight across necessarily, because then it deactivates the tangency and it goes to the 3-point curve. Okay, go ahead and click on that point, and now middle click with your wheel one time, and you should see the dimensions appear. Now this is really large compared to what we need. So what we want to do is we want to start with the smaller dimensions first and work our way up to change them. Now in the training guide that I had up here, the dimensions for this are listed on here. And so you see they're set to diameters of 1.2 or 1.5. And if we had a full circle, we could get that, or we could actually, notice the radiuses here because they're not a full circle. You could redimension it with the dimension tool, double click and then middle click to drop it. Let's see how that's done actually, if we want to stick with those diameters, which we really don't want in this case, but I want to show you how that's done. So I'm going to go to dimension, and I'm going to click 2 times, and then move your pointer out here, and with the wheel, click. And you'll see the dimension appear, and this is supposed to be 1.2. Hit enter. All right, now let's try this one. Click 2 times, Now if you click one time, it'll give you a radius because it's half of a diameter. All right, so that's why it comes up that way. All right, and then middle click, and that will be 1.5. All right, and so there's how you could get diameter or radius. It's really kind of cool that it does that, at least in my opinion. Okay, now you'll see some dimensions in here, and sometimes you get the dimensions you want, sometimes they're a little quirky. Now you see these points here, these orange crosses. All right, so let's dimension between the orange crosses. Now this one, I'm going to zoom up really close because you can see it's not on the actual point. So there's the orange cross. I'm going to click, and it turns blue. I'm going to zoom out, and I'm going to select this orange cross down here. Click. And then over to the right with the wheel, middle click. And that will be 0.75. All right. Now we could go ahead and we want to get this onto the origin there, where it's at the center of the crosshairs. And that one up there, yours might look a little different. Remember, yours might be a little bit higher than mine or lower. But here's what we want to do. We want to go to the concentric tool. Now here's constraints. And this is, I'm sorry, not concentric, coincident. Go ahead and select the coincident, which looks like a line in the middle, or I should say a point in the middle of the line. And select this bottom orange cross one time. It should turn green. Now zoom up as close as you can, and you want to stay away from that orange cross for that top. Instead, we want the intersection where these light blue center lines intersect, like the crosshairs. Go ahead and click there. And it should have moved the whole object up. All right. Now you can middle click again. Now just one other thing, like what if I decided, you know, I don't like that 1.5 there as is. You could actually, if you click on it with the left mouse button one time, you'll see you have the ability to switch it to a linear or a radius. And here, well, in this case, the radius is what we want. So click on that. You see you can change them back. So click here and go to radius. So there's a lot of neat options there. Now, what does that matter? Like in this case, we'd want a radius because it's not a full circle. But for drill holes, sometimes you'll get radius, depending upon the information you put in, where you really wanted a diameter so that when this goes into a drawing, the person in the tool room knows to pick the right tool. Because if they're looking, usually you'll say, oh, well, there was an R in front of it. Yeah, but some people don't expect that you would dimension something that's going to be drilled out with a radius. So just be aware of that. Just some little helpful hints or tips for designers. Okay, go ahead and hit the OK. And if you rotate, now you could see the geometry here extruding out. And so with this, we're going to go ahead and we actually want this to be 0.5. And you could get it this way, like drag it down there, or else double click on here or up here, change it to 0.5. Now there's one additional thing we need on here. We need draft. And draft is for pulling it out of a mold. So basically, like if you've ever seen an ice cube tray, if you had a square pocket for the ice cubes or the cavities, it'd be very difficult to pull them out. Whereas if you put a little draft on it, the angles, it pulls out easier. So that's the whole idea here. This isn't actually a molded part so much as it's a drop forging, but still for drop forging, it's kind of the same concept. You're just squeezing the material. Okay, so add taper, you check that. And we're going to want minus, so put a little minus symbol 7 and hit enter. And what that does, here, let me move this out of the way, it adds the draft so it shrinks further away it gets from the center. Okay. And the reason we're doing it on one side is we're going to mirror it to the other side in just a moment. Creo does have a limitation where basically you can't do it on both sides, add the draft on both sides differently. As far as I've discovered, if someone knows a better way out there, a better way, go ahead and just put it down in the comments below. But it's just one of those limitations that you sometimes have. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. Now the object is still selected. The way I could tell that is there's a thin green geometry around it. See that on the topology? Now, while that's still selected, if it's not selected, you're going to have to select it. Oh, by the way, you might be wondering like why I don't have my planes on. which you could use the planes as a mirror plane too, okay, like that. I just turn those off for this. Okay, so now what we do is we go to up here to mirror, and again, make sure that your geometry is selected. If it's not, go ahead and click on it, then go to mirror. Now select this plane on the back side. Now be careful. Look where it shrinks down. Like here it's smaller than this side. So we want the back side. And that's where, you know what? Actually, that's where the plane display is really handy, because that way you're not going to make the mistake of selecting the wrong side and mirroring it incorrectly. So, you know, let's select this plane on the back side to mirror it across. And there we go. It just mirrored it to the other side. Okay. Now go ahead and hit OK. And we could turn off the plane display. All right, and in fact, I'm going to go ahead and turn on shaded with edges just so it's a little easier for conceptualization. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to actually turn the planes back on, because this time we actually really need it. And this plane right here, which is the top plane, find the top plane. You can select it over here as well, but when you click on that, you get quick launch tools, and one of them that we're looking for is plane, or P is the quick or fast key, or the plane is up at the top as well, as you can see there. Just all of them do the same thing. This is going to enable us to move this plane, because now we want to make the transition section. So you could go ahead and click this little arrow to flip the directions, because we're going to push this down. You could grab that orange dot in the center with your pointer and hold down the mouse button as you drag. And you could drag it to 4 if you got that much room, or you could go ahead and over here, this comes up, you could type in 4, or you could double click on this and type in 4. I'll do it right over here and hit OK. And now if I zoom out with my wheel, we can see the planes down below. And it's highlighted in green, so it's still selected. And that's actually what we want to do. We want to select that. I'm going to go ahead and click on it 2 times, one to deactivate it and then select it again, so that I could get the quick launch tools up here. Now I'm going to go right to extrude. Again, you could go with sketch and then later on extrude it after you hit the green check mark. But this is an all-in-one. I kind of like it. It's a little bit efficient, and it also leaves less information on the feature tree, because in the feature tree, if you start with the sketch, it'll leave a sketch behind on top of the sketch that it created for the feature. So it clutters the feature tree a little bit, not a big deal, but some companies actually, or managers, will want you to do it the way I'm showing you right now. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to the center and circle, or the circle tool. Get to the center here and click, drag out your circle, middle click 2 times, and double click on that dimension. Let's change it to 0.5. And now if we rotate, you'll see that circle is down below there. And let's hit OK. And notice it kicks us right into extrude, which is really good. But it's extruding in the wrong direction. So you can see that little arrow there. Click on that little arrow so it flips up. You could grab the dot too and drag it the opposite direction. Okay, now here we could put in an explicit value. But let's take a look at some of the options for the depth. So I'm going to click on depth here. And we'll see that you could actually go to next. Just go ahead and select that. That ensures that it goes up to the next body and merges with it. Go ahead and hit OK. Now, I have this options up here. You might not necessarily have that one. It's just the options tab here to bring that up. Or you could use the tools up here as well. Go ahead and hit OK. All right, I'm going to go ahead and let's see here. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put the handle section in. Now the handle section, we're going to draw on the front plane again. So you could select the front plane either from here or over here, whatever is easier for you. And we'll go to extrude again. And you could zoom out. Now if yours is 90 degrees rotated, all you have to do to realign that is go over here to this and click on front. And that will bring you to the same view that I have. Because it's all dependent upon where you were in relation to how your part was rotated, how it's going to align. Okay, go to the corner rectangle tool, and over here on the right in the open space, just click and drag out a rectangle, middle click 2 times. Now this first dimension should appear, and whatever it is to the center of your head there, or actually the bottom part of the head, you want that to be 3.75. Now that's the distance our handle is going to be away from it. We're going to have it dig into this section a little bit. All right, now this dimension might be at the top or the bottom. It's the width. Double click on that. Let's make that 1. And then there's the 3.17. Now, if you're not seeing these, remember it's a middle click to get these. Otherwise, you could go to the dimension tool and just add them manually. Like here, I'm going to click over here and then middle click over here, and it will override the others as we learned in previous exercises. And this will be 4, and hit enter. Now there's this dimension from this edge to the center, and we don't really want that. Let's go to the center line tool, and right here in the middle, find the midpoint, click and drag up a vertical center line, and then middle click 2 times. Now all we have to do is go to coincident constraint, select that center line, and now go ahead and select this center line in the middle, and it will align to it. Right, now there's a dozen ways you could have modeled that. I just wanted to keep it simple and keep it away from the model just so you didn't get confused and click on other things. All right, let's go ahead and hit OK. We see this is extruding again. We're going to set this. It does remember our settings, but in this case, we want this to be 0.375 for the height. All right. And we do want to add a taper. And if you hit the little arrow to the right, you should see your -7 there. And that's what we want. So select -7. And then you could go ahead and hit OK. All right, now we'll flip this around to the underside. And I clicked, unfortunately, so it deselected that part. I should say the handle, which we want to mirror. So select the extrude 3 from the model tree. And look at that, we have mirror right away. Or you could go up to the top to mirror. Either one's fine. And now let's select that front plane again to mirror across. And it should instantly mirror it as soon as you select that and hit OK. All right, so we have the basics done here. We could actually turn off the planes now if you want. We're not going to use them for a little bit. One thing I have off is this, which actually I really like. I meant to turn on it just for the rendering. I turned it off. Or I should say not really rendering, but just to look at it without that. That's the spin center. So it finds the centroid of the model and spins from there as an option. Okay, we're going to go ahead and put the details in on the head. So select this face, and let's go to extrude. We're going to put a recess in it. Now remember, if you want this rotated vertically, let's do that. Let's go to front, and it pops up like so. And then we could just zoom up. I'm using my wheel, or you could hold your you don't want to hold your mouse button down without these other things. Let's go back to front there. If you hold Shift down on your keyboard and the middle wheel, you could pan. Okay. And then zoom up to this area just by focusing your pointer on the head. Now, this is where things have changed from earlier versions, and I just want to go through this in a way that's not too confusing. So we want to make an offset of this to make a recess for a cover plate that's going to fit on here, which will encapsulate the gear and also a little clicking mechanism down below, or latching mechanism. So let's find this tool right here, which is offset. Now it brings up, unfortunately mine's popping up on the wrong side of the screen here. Let's see if I could get it over. You get this, and you also get a little reference selection message, which it says, and unfortunately you're not seeing on my screen, but you probably have it. You can add a single, chain, or loop reference to the reference collector. So the way this works, you just click in here. We want to capture this whole edge. So select like this inner, note carefully what I'm selecting. It's just one layer in or one level in there. Click, and you'll begin to see an offset occurring. That's okay. Yours might look a little different. Now, remember it said to hold Shift. Now select the next one in line, and then it grabs all of them. Okay, so it's actually really nice what they just added there compared to what it used to be. If you want to watch some of my older videos, it was pretty good back then, but now it's getting exceptional. This is really cool how it did that. All right, now we could see this green dot here. You could drag that inward, or you could type in a negative value on the actual dimension there. But we want it to be 0.1. So if you get to 0.1, and there, if I hold it long enough, you could see it. Or you could get in there and see if you zoom up, you could double click on that dimension. Actually, there we go. Middle click 2 times. And then you can double click. Oh, and make sure it's 0.1. I'm using that. Apparently in this case, it should have been negative 0.1. So let's try that again. Double click, negative 0.1. There it is. Now it's on the inside. All right. And it might be a little confusing there, and I apologize. I'm still learning this tool. This one just came out. So hit OK. Now, if I rotate, we can see the head there. We actually want this to go into the body. So just grab that and drag it down, or you could hit the pink arrow to bring it down. Now it's going right to remove material, which is fine. On the options, we don't really need the options up. I'm going to turn that off. I like the options from time to time, but could get in the way too. All right, and in this case, we want it to be 0.1. All right, and hit OK. Now we're going to make a pocket in there. So select that face and go to extrude again. And let's zoom up. Okay, and then I want you to draw the circle down here at this intersection. And don't have it touch this edge. Have it in a little bit like that. And then find the center point here. Now, this is just like all other CAD systems really out there if you've used another one. To awaken the center point for this arc, you just hover over it for a second. And then there it is. I didn't click, I just hovered. Okay, now I go back to that point. There's the center. And I'm going to intersect this a little bit. Try not to let it snap. See how mine was snapping to those other relations? We don't want those. If they happen, you could just go ahead and hit undo, try it again, or you could click on those relations, those little dots with the symbols in them, and hit delete. Okay, now that we have both of those, you can middle click 2 times. Now you see that these are diameters, and that's what we want for those parameters. So double click on this, make this 1, and double click on this and make that 0.7. All right, and we're going to go ahead and I'm going to show you how to use the trim tool. Now the trim tool is called delete segment here. They have actually a corner trim as well. You can try corner trim really quick, and you'll see, in this case, actually, this isn't a good tool. Actually, let's go with the delete segment. Now, there's 2 ways you could work this. There's actually a couple tools in one here. Hover over what you don't want, like in this case, I don't want that, and see it deletes it. I'll zoom up a little closer so you can see it. I could do the same over here. I could click on that. Now, the other way to use this tool is just like hover down here and hold your mouse button down. And look at it starting to scribble something. And you just scribble through what you don't want. Now just be careful not to go through lines that you might want. Like don't go through these areas. If that happens, just hit the undo button up here and you'll be in good shape. Now I'm going to middle click 2 times. And that way I can drag my dimensions out. They're already in diameter, so that's all good. And we could go ahead and hit OK. Rotate it a little bit. Grab the orange dot, drag it down. And we want to then find this dimension, double click on it, type 0.75. All right, and hit OK. Now we're going to put some through holes in here that are going to be equal. So select this bottom face of that pocket. Go to extrude. And we're not going to use the hole tool. We'll use that on exercise 4, which is coming up. But I'm going to just one last time show you how to draw a hole here. We just go to the circle tool at that center, drag out a small hole, middle click 1 time. And let's go ahead and change that. Let's change that to 0.35. And now let's go back to the circle tool. And remember to wake up that center. You just hover over one of these edges of the concentric rings that are on the outside there. When it shows, click, drag it out. Now here, see that auto relation? Look at the symbol in those 2 little blue balls. Those are equal symbols. So basically, that is actually going to give you equal relations between this. So you don't have to dimension it twice. So if you change one of them, it will change the other. So let's say I want to change it to 0.375. They both update. And these dimensions, one reason why I like to use these like this with the diameter and so on, is that because later on we're going to transfer these to a drawing, and those dimensions we could automatically have them pop up. Now, again, the precision, you can see that changes, but if you double click on it, you actually see the 0.375. And I believe I discussed that in exercise 1, how the precision works. Okay. middle, hit the green check mark, and now this is extruding. Drag this through the other side. This is always letting you know it's just removing the material. I leave it on just because I'm a trainer, so you could hit that little checkbox, get rid of it if you want. But in this case, instead of giving it an explicit value, if we always know that it goes through, as we learned in exercise 1, select through all and hit OK. And there it is. Now finally, let's just put fillets on here. Now for drop forging, you want everything filleted that isn't machined. So these are all machined features in here. That's why we didn't have to put draft. But the exterior needs to have nice fillets on it, or rounds. Go to the round tool, and we're going to go ahead and let me bring this up a little bit so you can see it. We actually want the radius down here to be 0.1. Okay, and select. Be careful not to select faces, even though it lets you select faces. It might cause some confusion there. So go ahead and select this edge here. Hover over this back edge. Look carefully at what I'm touching with the tip of my pointer. Click. And then the lengths of the handles, like you select this, this one here. If you want, you could select those middle ones too. So all the lengths are fine. And I'll put fillets on there. You can now hit a new set, but if you do that, you lose an ability, which is to propagate. So hit OK. There's more selecting involved sometimes with that, but go to round again, and now set this radius to 0.06. And you could select this back edge here, and apparently it's not carrying on through that radius, which I'm kind of surprised. But that's okay. We'll select that back edge there. So there's a couple. And then these edges here. And here, be careful not to select the face. The face turns orange. And to deselect the face, by the way, you just hold the Shift key and select it in, or Shift or Control. Let's try it. Like, let's say I selected that and I didn't want that. You can reselect it, or actually holding Shift. I'm sorry, Control. Hold Control, sorry. Okay, anyways, now go ahead and select this edge here and this edge here and hit OK. All right, now one last thing we're going to add is our name, or whatever you want to put down on here text-wise. Go ahead and select this face, go to extrude. Now, you could do this vertically or horizontally. I had mine already rotated horizontally when I went to the sketch, so it's like that, and that's fine. Go ahead and we're going to select the line tool. Now we want to, right about here in this lower left corner, but not touching the corner or the surface, we're going to click and drag a line across. This is the line that we want our text to be on. So you don't want it centered, because if you center it on this, your text is going to be offset. So just be aware of that. Okay, middle click 2 times. Now go ahead and click on that green line. And right here, you can change it to construction geometry. That way, it's innocuous. Creo doesn't think you want to extrude it. You don't have any issues. All right, now we go to the text tool. And we're just eyeballing that. By the way, you saw you could add dimensions to locate the line where you want it to start and stop. But click here, drag straight up and above, about the equal distance that you have below, from the bottom line to the bottom edge, from up here to the top edge. All right, now we could go ahead and type in what we want to put on there. I'm going to put in Creo 9. Oops. All right, you could select different fonts. Some of them work really well. Some of them have some issues. So just be aware of that. That could be a problem. You could also slant it. You could do a lot of fun things. There's place along curve if it's a radius curve and so on. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And now I'm just going to hit OK, and it's going to extrude this. Now, if I want this to be raised, or what they call embossed, I go ahead and keep it above the surface. I'm going to go ahead and type in 0.03, and that's an embossed one. You could hit the little arrow, flip it, and it could be engraved. So either one. I'll emboss it this time and hit OK. All right, and there is our text. Okay, now you can change some of the colors like we've seen before. If you want, just go to View, go to Appearances, and we'll go ahead and change this to, let's see what we have here. This is PTC Steel. I'll go with polished steel. And then down here on the filter, it dropped down so you can't see it, but I'm going to go with body. And I just select the entire body with the paintbrush, and then middle click, and it adds that. Now, if you really want to see this enhancement, go to shading with reflections, and now you can see the shininess of it. And you could add additional colors too. So like if I want, I could go over here and I'm going to go to blue, and then instead of all, I'm going to go to surface and just select the surface of that lettering to paint that. Okay. Now you could go to scene and select a different scene if you like. I'm going to go ahead and keep it on this one, but I'm going to go to edit scene, and I want, under the scene editor here, I want to change the environment a little bit. And instead of floor plane being the bottom, I'm going to go with back. And so look at that, the shadow comes out underneath there. You could adjust shadow, turn on reflection if you like, and hit close when you're ready. And then finally up here is perspective view, and that gives you a vanishing point, makes it look more realistic, even so that way. You could go ahead and any colors you like on there. Have a little fun with it. Remember, the appearances are there. And when you get ready, you could go right here to the rendering studio, and it should automatically turn on the real-time rendering. You might hear your computer spool, the fan spool up, because it's using all the processing power. And so you could do that. You could turn off real-time if you want. But that's a really cool looking picture there. I could alt print screen, drop it in, or whatever way you want to copy and paste that into a document. Or you could just close that and output this. So we could go to File, Save As, actually Print. And we'll do a, let's see here, quick print. And we'll select, instead of my printer, I'm going to go Microsoft Print to PDF and hit OK. Let's see how this turns out. Put my desktop. Oh, I gotta give it a name. And then there it is. Actually turned out really nice. This is the PDF. If, I don't know, let me get this to where you can see it. And there it is. And that's all you have to put into, those of you who are in my class, just go into the assignments and upload that. And there it is. And that concludes exercise 3. Now there's the labs, and I have videos for those on there. You could take a look at those videos. All right. Thank you. Have a good day.